All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bro Stop Yelling podcast. My name is Ammo, and I'm going to be your host. Go around the room so everybody can introduce ourselves. So, one of our resident Eagles, Ant, why don't you tell the people?
Yo, my name is Anthony. Follow me, ASUSA203. Going to shift it down to Dre.
What up, y'all? It's Dre. See me there. Follow me on X, aka Twitter, thekid_24.
Let's go, Kenny.
And
Stop
Kenny.
yelling, Kenny, on Twitter. It's still Twitter because that's how I see it. It's on X. There you go. So follow me. Do whatever. Don't watch this though. Welcome in.
All righty. So, we're going to start this episode off here. There have been a lot of controversial calls going on in these games. A lot of people have actually kind of said that it feels similar to when we had the replacement refs in some of these games. A lot of wild inconsistencies in reffing. And it gets to really be a problem when, it affects like the outcome of games and stuff. So Kenny has prepared some points for us about the reffing situation in the NFL this year. So I'm going to let him take this one.
Yeah, thank you. I think you hit it right on the head. I think there's been more of these just random game-changing calls that's come up. There's just a couple of examples that I've recognized or at least seen is some of these blatant, just unnecessary roughness calls. I think some of them are too lenient. Some of them are way too light. You're seeing some of these times, some of these catches that are coming on that are inbounds. They're calling out of bounds. They're calling them back. There's 20-yard catches, but they were house calls. I think DJ Moore had one. I know Amari Cooper had one week 3. You start to see these like inconsistencies with the refereeing. Now even everybody's having these conspiracies now where everything's like, oh, the league is rigged now because they're changing so much on like the outcomes of games, such as like say even the week 8, it was the Ravens versus the Cardinals where the ball was misplaced from like the first down. I think it was a 4th and 1. They completely pulled the ball back, readjusted it. Even the announcers called it out. The week 4 Chiefs and Jets, the interception I think Mahomes was picked off. I want to say it was the second quarter. I may be mistaken, but ball gets picked off. Flag comes on afterward for something that was called previously. Just these little inconsistencies and things that people are picking up on. I think it's kind of degrading the league of what you hope that they would uphold, I think, to a degree. I mean, granted, they're humans, but there isn't anything in place to hold them accountable for something that can be ever game-changing, which it could be tied to maybe they're doing what they're supposed to do. But you have a lot of people, a lot of viewpoints on, well, obviously now a lot of states are allowing betting is obviously more legal. So, countrywide, more opportunities, more things of that nature. So I think that it's becoming more apparent to people that are paying attention to these close little details that are starting to see these similarities or irregularities.
Well, you bring up betting, which is, I think, a very valid point, because that's something that can greatly influence someone's integrity, if large sums of money can be won
Involved.
if they, make a call go one way or another. Do you think that there's anything like that? Do you think that it's more that it's getting legalized so people are not hitting their own bets, so they're looking for anything but the fact that they can't put together a good parlay and they just don't know how to, win bets, or they're just really unlucky and they're just trying to find a scapegoat? Or do you think that there's some validity to what they're saying? Or do you just think that the refs this year are not playing at the same, or
I mean, they do seem a little
performing
subpar
at the same level that they normally do. Yeah. Subpar.
I mean,
All right.
I think they're a little subpar, but I think honestly, I think it's a domino effect of where a lot more people are taking, a stake into sports betting, especially now. You're paying attention to these small things, these little nuances that maybe you wouldn't have paid attention to even 5 years ago. So it's like, I think at this time I was looking at some of the stats for last year as opposed to this year. I know, obviously Raiders fans are saying it's a bias, but they are the most, penalized team since 2010. I think it's like 80 plus yards or something like that. I think a game somewhere averaged, but something crazy like that. But I think it's you're bringing more attention to it, more awareness to every little detail, every play. Like you said, parlays have to hit certain ways, certain catches, certain things. If certain things don't count, obviously you're going to pay attention to those. So, it could be some bitterness. It could be some like, oh, I didn't hit, so it must be some, universal thing. But yeah, no, I think it's a lack of a lot of maybe integrity by some of the referees, not to call anybody out, but I think it's something that needs to be taken a look into for sure.
All right, now Ant and Dre, I'm going to ask if either one of you have a strong feeling about this, because obviously it's being talked about enough by everybody on the internet, fans of a lot of different fan bases. This is not just one fan base that got screwed out of a game. You got Bills fans crying about Jaguars game. You've got Colts and Browns. You've got that Cardinals game you were talking about with the ball
Right.
spot. Like, there's a lot of things that have been happening. It's a lot of different fan bases. So do you think it's really just a lot of really bad reffing this year? Do you think that the betting is influencing? Do either one of you have any kind of thought on that?
Go ahead, Dre.
Yeah. Yes. Because I think I said this last time we were talking about ref-related performance. We'll call it that. Because I said anytime you walk away from a game and you're talking more about the refs than the play on the field, it's a problem.
Right.
And like Kenny had made a point about like the Raiders, I think, being the most penalized team. I don't really put too much stake in that because like some team has to be the most penalized, right? If you look at just numbers, somebody has to be in first. And, but it is widespread enough that I don't think it's necessarily any bias towards the team, but it is very, very curious to me why changes haven't been made to this point, only because we've been complaining about this, and I say we as just collective, right, as fans, have been complaining about this. The league players have been complaining about this, and I feel like the fix is really easy, and it doesn't have to be one thing. I feel like there's multiple things they can do. They already have reviewable plays, right? Every turnover is reviewed. Every scoring play is reviewed, right? Maybe you don't review every penalty, but determine what's a controversial penalty, right? Or maybe
I feel
the
like roughing
coaches
the passer should be one of those, right?
Yeah, or like pass interference, right? Because you can see,
there you
like,
go.
hey, was that ball catchable?
Are you holding?
Or
right.
was that ball tipped first, right? Like, you should be
Yeah.
able to review those things if it's not clear. And I feel like it's a weird reason that it hasn't happened, some kind of reform to help the refs get the calls right. Now, a conspiracy theorist might think,
they did
a
try to,
conspiracy
not to cut
theorist
you
might
off, but
think
they did try to, my bad, I was saying they did try to implement the rewind on the
Pass interference.
pass interference 2 years ago, or was it last year? I can't remember. So they did try to do that, and it failed miserably because they were basically like pride, ego, whatever. I think that it was like whatever, like just for example, if it was us four reffing and Kenny made the call or I made the call and Amo was the lead guy, he'd still come over and he'd be like, I don't want to make you guys look bad. We're going to stay with the call on the field. I want to, kind of cover you. And that's what I think people kind of came across with that. But I'll let you finish.
Right. But now they do. And, just to counter that point, they have now a third party that also helps with the, the advanced replays, or not advanced, but like the sped up replays. So it doesn't take as long, right? You got the voice from New York looking at the play and just being like, actually, this is the situation, right? So like, why can't that same set of eyes just be like, actually, that ball wasn't catchable, or actually that ball was tipped, or actually that DB was very early on that play, right? Like, you should be able to, review those things. And, to the point about the pass interference is you keep it, again, you don't want it to be every single call is under the microscope because, you have to leave something up to just the refs being able to do their job. But controversial plays or maybe calls inside of 2 minutes, right? Maybe the coaches get a challenge flag similar to, a play they can challenge that includes penalties, right? There's different things you can do, and it's just very curious, very surprising that they haven't done anything.
Right.
Agree. And to go off of that, I actually have a couple points too, and I'll go quick. But it's kind of this year, I think I heard earlier, like 2 weeks ago, there was a point where I think this year there was more fines on non-penalties than previous years. So it actually almost goes to a point where imagine if those were called as well, how many more penalties we'd have. Some of these hits that were supposed to be personal fouls, whether it be roughing the passer. I think it was DeAndre Swift not DeAndre Swift. Sorry, it was another running back who like lowered his head and got fined like $48,000. I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember who it was.
Dude, it's insane the amount of fines that they're putting out.
Right. So my question is, like, maybe in the back of my head with these fines coming out is maybe just like we all have bosses, the NFL is coming down on these guys. And if they do not make that call, like this $48,000 fine, I wonder if there's something back end that we don't know about that the refs are somehow getting some type of fine as well, or some type of nick or something. Something has to be being done because I can't imagine that this type of job.
What they have
is being done.
What they have is like if they're a crew that's not really good at hitting on, like if they're one of the lower percentage ones, they don't get playoff games.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
Which is a big thing because like I said, there's a guy that comes in to my job that works as a ref. And he said like the bonus payouts for those playoff games are sizably different than the regular.
Right. So you kind of want to make the right calls during the week, but at the same time, are you under a microscope? Because it's like, do I have to make this pass interference call? Because if I don't, Roger's going to come down at me because I didn't make this call, or he might not come down at me, but because you're the team lead, he's going to come down on you. Like I don't know. We don't know the back end workings, but I'm just kind of throwing that out
I feel like we kind of do, though. I feel like, there's always kind of that league focus, right? And they talk about, rule changes and stuff like that during the offseason and then in preseason and sometimes into the season, you see a difference in how they officiate the games. So you might see a difference in, the penalties in terms of more, or what might go more unnoticed is the penalties that they don't call as much, right? Like, hey, maybe it's holding, hey, ease up on
like your offensive line jumping and things like that.
So holding isn't called as much, but it still happens on every play.
Right, but there's obviously a whole division dedicated to rewatching games and seeing what they've missed to find players. So that's my only get back. That's the only thing I wanted to throw in there is that because this year I heard, and that's what just reminded me of it, that there was more fines this year than at midway point than years prior. Like literally years, the whole year they didn't have this many fines on non-penalties. That's the only reason why I was like, maybe there's an emphasis on that back of house. But next thing I had was with penalties is, do you know on like 90+% of kickoffs or punt returns, if there is a big play, there's always a penalty. So it's like another thing where it's like, the refs I feel like have too much control of the game, where it's like you can't get
that's how Madden works.
Is that a true stat? 90%, or is that just you?
90+%. Yeah, no, it was 90+. I heard. I mean, I didn't look it up, but it was 90+ kickoffs. I was watching a podcast that they were like 90+% of kickoffs or punt returns that have big returns always have a penalty. 90% of the time have a penalty that bring it back.
I think they were kind of.
Is that the length of the play? Maybe.
I feel like they weren't saying that as an exact stat. I think they were saying it as an exaggerated point of what they were trying to say.
Well, in my head,
nothing in the NFL is 90%.
I was saying in my head, well, besides the push tush, but anyway, I almost believe it because almost every time you guys see a kickoff or a punt return that's big, you don't think that thing is called back almost? All right, even if it's not 90,
feel it happens
I'll
that
go
often
with
where I'm
80.
like, damn, again.
I feel like every
80?
time there's a
That's
big
high,
kickoff,
man.
I think it's that high though. I feel like it is. I feel like every time there's a big kickoff or a punt return, that those things are getting
of like
called
30
back.
yards, 40 yards type of thing. Or
no, I'm talking
like
about like
calls.
house calls or like 60 yarders. I'm not talking about the 10, 15 yarders. I'm not talking about
those types of plays don't happen often as is. So for most
that's what
of
I'm
them,
talking about for big
to get
plays,
called
though.
back, like that's no, it's not that high of a percentage. I wish maybe we can pull up some advanced metrics or like
we could probably look it up while we're going on the next thing, and then I'll look.
Well,
I'll see.
Hey, Jamie, put it up on the screen.
I thought of something that when we were talking about some way to either incentivize or penalize the refs to hold them accountable for what they're doing and the way that they're
incentivize them. Make it to where you can call the playoff games. Make it to where
no. I have an idea.
Part of the bigger games.
I have an idea. What do you think about having a pay structure for the crew, and the crews get vetted because they always go through, and there's always some report at some week where they say, hey, Minnesota, we made the wrong call on one of the calls in the game. Like, we're sorry, our refs messed that up. Like that, they do that stuff. What if they put it where, like, if your crew is above 90% for the game, you get paid this. If you're above this, like, if they could put it in tiers,
like a QC, like a quality control,
something like that, or put it in a thing where, hey, you're going to get paid this if you guys make a metric for like a game-changing play, like a pass interference for 45 yards, fourth down play where you now just give a team a first down for no, like things like that. If you get those calls, if you get one of those calls wrong, it adds up like where it would take a ding, like so that it's somehow like I don't like doing fines. I don't like doing that. I don't
like points on
really
your
like messing with their money for the way they do it. But if it's a thing like, hey, if you're above this thing, you get a bonus. If you're above this percent, you get a bonus, and make it a high percentage. For the bonus, they still get paid their regular pay. But if you're above this, you get X amount of dollars for this game. And if your crew's always hitting that, percent, like you're getting paid out more, like there's more incentive to do it on a weekly basis versus getting, waiting, trying to hope that you're going to be the teams that get the playoff games.
I don't know that will impact performance all that much. And I only say that because it's almost like we're suggesting that the refs aren't performing well enough because they're not incentivized enough by the pay. And the truth is, some people are better at their jobs than others. You know what I mean?
I'm realizing I forgot one caveat. Like with y'all talking about doing like reviewable penalties. You know how we tried to implement the reviewable pass interference and they all just stood on whatever they said because it was ego, it was pride, it was whatever it was. It's like, my guy made a call, I'm rocking with his call. Like, it wasn't blatant like that one with the Saints and Rams, so I'm not overturning it. Like if it's not that, I'm not doing it. They just stuck with whatever the call. So if we put it in where we have
in the moment, you think they take references and then hold it back there. You don't think that they're like in the moment. You think that they're like, oh, well, like certain plays, like of previous games that they may have called. Do you think that they harbor those things? Like if they call them wrong, or I misunderstood?
No. I'm saying like when they make a call on a field and they had the pass interference be reviewable, they never overturned any of the pass interferences that teams threw challenge flags on, because whether it was them standing on their word, they didn't want to change, they didn't want to go back on what they said or what they called, even though there were some that I saw get challenged that should have been overturned and they weren't. So that's when I knew.
That's why you need the third party in a situation like that, because they're biased. So I have that eye in the sky from New York come in and take a look at it.
Well, I was saying, like, even if you do it, you just incentivize. Like, if you are on those reviewable plays and you get above a certain percent, like, then they'll be more incentivized to not stand on their word. If they know it's the wrong call, they'd be incentivized to actually make the right call. I don't know. Because I feel like they just do that a lot of times when they had that up. That's why I don't trust the review system. And there's always going to be flaws with it, because if you put it on one person reviewing it, like even when you got the dude in New York, it's still a guy, and it's like we go back and forth on calls. Like people think it's one way, people think it's another. It just depends on who's behind the final voice. It's always going to be discretion. So
how far do you believe it takes us to computer refereeing? Like it becomes digital. I mean, you already have a camera going literally over the field at all times. How long until it becomes just a tech booth somewhere?
That's what they do with soccer.
I mean, yeah.
For offsides.
And they only, I think it's an average. The refs make $205 a year, $205,000 a year. So it's like you can be swayed. You can be swayed in Vegas with that.
Yeah, I feel like something's got to change. I just really don't know what, because this year is pretty bad. Like Jags have been on both sides of it. Trevor Lawrence got a nice roughing the passer call that I wouldn't have thrown the flag for. It was one of those.
Bryce had one missed.
Probably called the driving the body weight shit or whatever. That's why, I also don't like the idea of replays, because anytime it's a roughing the passer and they put that shit in slow motion, they are going to justify every roughing the passer.
Looks like a car crash.
Because it's
every time.
That's my concern with roughing the passer. They're going to look at that shit and they're going to see the body all in slow motion fucking doing shit. And they'll be like, yep, nope, definitely should have been a flag. And they'll just stand on it. So, I don't know.
He assaulted the man.
But I think to kind of finish off that ref segment, I think the Colts-Browns was probably the most egregious one that I've seen so far. The Colts did everything that they needed to do to win that game, and then the refs called some bogus pass interference call or whatever it was on an uncatchable ball out the back of the end zone, set up another fresh set of downs. Like the other one where it was a call on Amari Cooper, like there was enough to call the illegal contact, but it was also
like a really catch.
It was a really
catch should have been a house call.
The one where it was thrown way over the top of the end zone, like that's uncatchable. Right. There's no reason to throw that flag. You gave them a fresh set of downs, and then you get the other one with the illegal contact, and then now you set up with all these fresh set of downs in the red zone. Obviously, they're going to score. Like you just gave them. Like, so I get why Colts fans have every right to be mad about that. Like, so you get the Browns who snuck away with a nice little easy win, and they've been playing very, very well. That AFC North as a whole, top to bottom, has been playing pretty well. Dre says that he's got some interesting points about this AFC North, so I really want to hear what he's got to say about this bloodbath of a division.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say it's the best division in football. Just because of how competitive it is. I don't know what to make of this division in terms of who's going to come out of it. I have my thoughts in terms of what I've seen so far, in terms of who the best team in the division is. But, I mean, just to kind of run down what's been going on, right? Like, I thought the Ravens were number one in that division, and then they lose to the Browns. I thought the Bengals were the hottest team in football. I thought the Bengals were the hottest team in football. And then they lose.
Kind of a slow start.
Yeah. The Steelers, how about the streak that they're on? They have been outgained in every single game they have played this season, and they are 6-3.
It's incredible.
That's let that sink in for a second. Like every single game, the other team has more yards than they do, but they somehow find a way to win. So you can't really continue to ignore what they're doing in Pittsburgh. I don't know that that's sustainable. So in terms of, me trying to sort out who I feel like the best team in this division is, I think the first team I would count out is the Steelers. Obviously, like we said, 6-3. I think they're currently third. But I just can't see them sustaining this. There's no way you're going to continue to be outgained and come away with wins. Their defense, though, is playing, out of its world, and then the offense is doing just enough. And again, kudos to Tomlin. I have to say, like, I put my foot in my mouth. I think my bold prediction to start the season was that he was going to have his first losing record. I'm looking pretty ridiculous with that now. But
he needs 3 wins to tell you to shut up.
Yeah, and I believe he's about to, right? So then the next team, the Bengals, right? I think, this is a team that really catches fire near the end of the season, but I think this season it's possible they dug themselves too big of a hole. Not only are they currently last sitting at 5-4, but they are 0-2 in the division, where every other team in the division has, I think, at least 2 division wins. So now, you're -4 in terms of wins in the division, and in terms of record, you're, hovering barely above 500. So I feel like this is a team that's going to surprise some people by being on the outside looking in when it's all said and done. And then it comes down to the Ravens and the Steelers. And right now, I'm going to have to go on a limb. I don't know if this is a hot take, an unpopular take, but the Ravens are looking like frauds. And I know they're 7-3, and I know they, look great. But if games were 3 quarters long, hands down, they're the best team in that division.
All day.
But these games are 4 quarters, and they do not show up in the fourth quarter. I think Lamar Jackson, I want to say, has 12 fourth quarter turnovers in the last 2 seasons, which is, I think, by far number 1. I think every single game this season, they've had the lead going into the fourth quarter and have managed to lose 3 of those. I do not know how they lost to the Browns last week. And that's why I'm actually going to pick the Browns as the best team in that division, and my pick to come out of that division.
Wow.
And not only for the reasons that I've said, but also
Nick Chubless too.
Yeah, Nick Chubless Browns. But again, that defense is doing a lot to keep them in positions to stay competitive and win games.
Sure.
I hear a lot of criticism about Deshaun Watson, but when I look down, they're actually 5-1 when Deshaun Watson starts. So I didn't realize that, but so they're winning when he's starting, even though he hasn't been playing that great. So that's a scary thought to say that he's going to start playing better. And his second half against the Steelers last week was the best half I've seen him play as a Brown. And if I was a Browns fan, I'd be pretty encouraged by that. And then my last point to why I think they're going to win the division is strength of schedule. So when you look at strength of schedule for the other 2 teams that I mentioned, in the Ravens and the Bengals, I think the Ravens have the Bengals have the toughest remaining schedule in the NFL, and the Ravens have the 4th toughest remaining schedule in the NFL, and the Browns have the 22nd strength of schedule. So when you look at it, when it's all said and done, the Browns do have the best path forward to coming out of the division.
All right.
To tag on your point, the last games that they have fall as Steelers, Broncos, Rams, Jags, Bears, Texans, Jets, and Bengals. That's fair. That's good. That's good. It's a lot of winnable games there. Him going back to Houston is going to be a good one.
Yeah, the Ravens got no cakewalk either. I mean, they have the Bengals on Thursday, Chargers, Rams, those 2, kind of whatever. But then you have the Jaguars, the 49ers, the Dolphins, and the Steelers. You know what I mean? The 2 division games right there are already going to be tough. You just had a tough one in the Browns. The LA teams, you probably split it because you can never understand. The Chargers and the Ravens are the same team. The same team. They are very unpredictable, overhyped every year. Like, they come in, they might win some games, they lose some games. I feel like they're the same team.
Lots
of might beat you. Yeah, they get injuries. They can beat on some good teams, but they can also lose to good teams, obviously. And then they can beat up on some bad teams and lose with some bad teams. You're like, how did you lose to them? Like, you just smoked the best team in the NFL last week. Then you go over to the worst team, lose by a landslide. And then the next week you go and beat the second best team in the NFL. It's like the inconsistency there is like unreal with those two. And then the Jaguars, kind of, I would say almost in that same boat too, like kind of inconsistent and not know what to expect with them this season too. But the Jaguars, I mean, the Ravens have a couple of tough games, especially the Dolphins, the Ravens. And
like I said, they have the fourth
sure.
toughest schedule for the rest of the year in the NFL. So
those are for sure. So I kind of agree with you, and it's hard to hang your hat on the Brownies, but geez, man, I guess
that defense is unreal. Like that defense might
Lights
straight
out.
up just carry them to that division title, man. That's crazy.
You're probably right. You know what I mean? And the Bengals, I think if they lose on Thursday, I think they can.
They're done. They're sunk. If they lose, they're cooked.
Yeah.
I think
they pretty much locked the season
it's a make or break.
Because I mean, they got really like they have the Jags, and then they have the Chiefs, and then they also have the Browns at the end of the year. So they got 3 games that are potential losses besides this Thursday already. That's like, yo, bro, you got to be perfect. And I don't think that they're going to be. So I'm going to have to agree with you and go Browns.
I'm going to go Ravens. I think the Ravens I think they still take the division, but it's going to come down to the wire. There's going to be playoff scenarios in week 18 that are going to have to all play out for that division.
Right.
Do we have anybody else have any more thoughts on the AFC North?
I'll just toss my hat into it. I'll give it to the Bengals by the end of the year.
Wow.
Why not?
Right.
Why not?
Couple games back, they really got to be like Ant said. They got to be
fourth. They really got to be perfect. Right. 5-4. They got to lose. Maybe
Kenny, are you putting any money on that? You're gonna rock that on a betting app?
Let's see what we can do. Let's see. Where's my rules here?
Gotta be
put your damn phone down before you donate to one of them betting apps.
Right? No shit. You'll get me hooked. Get me started on those things.
They have 8 games, and I believe they have to go 6-2.
Oh, without a doubt,
minimum.
Have a chance
because I don't think 10-7 gets you into the playoffs in the AFC this year.
Not in that division.
No. Not in that division. No.
Not in the AFC either. I don't think either.
Talking about the AFC North and the Bengals, though.
Maybe actually.
Kind of what put them in this position of being 4th in the division is they went up and they played the Texans, a team that, had the number 2 overall pick, starting a rookie quarterback.
Who's that?
It's a guy named CJ Stroud, and we're gonna have to face him twice a year for the next 10 to 15 goddamn years.
Good
so,
luck.
You could thank Carolina for that one.
I think there'll be a little bit of coming back down to earth, but my God, that kid is playing absolutely incredible. So that leads us into our next segment here with Ant. He's going to tell us about the front runner for Rookie of the Year and easily top 3 in MVP consideration.
Yeah, and he has been playing great, and you're coming into a team that had the number 2 pick, and obviously they traded to come up and get the number 3 pick. But besides the talent that they got at that top of the draft, I mean, the team itself is not good. I mean, their leading receiver right now at 631 yards is the 19th receiver in the NFL. Their second leading receiver is Tank Dell at 500 yards. He's 36th in the NFL at that number. The running back is 36th in Devin Singletary. What he's able to do, having 5 wins, 4 losses with a team that does not have top talent, coaching staff is new. D'Amico Ryans being a defensive head coach coming over and, kind of taking that team. And to be honest, off the top of my head, I don't even know who their offensive coordinator is.
Bobby Slowick.
Okay. So never heard of the guy. Like
Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan system. The Shanahan.
Okay. Came from Shanahan, but we've seen
Take
a lot
your
of
word
people
for
come
it.
from a lot of people, and they're not them, So coming from that guy, great, cool. I mean, is he going to be the next, Sean McVay out of there, or any of these other? I think there's one other name or 2 other guys, Matt LaFleur or something that came under the Is that going to be the next guy? Or is CJ Stroud really just that good? And I think he is. He's got the best touchdown to interception ratio in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's second in passing to only Sam Howell.
Passing yards.
Terrible team. Right. Terrible. I mean, passing yards, he's at 2649. Hold on, if I'm not mistaken. I think I have it just up right now. He is at 2626 right now. So he's thrown for 2,700 yards. If you were to double it, I know that you minus one game because I know we can't, there's 9 and 8, obviously, like you were saying before. So, but even if you were to double it and minus a 250, 300 yard game, I mean, he's still going to be at 5,000 yards passing at this rate. I mean, he will be right around there. I mean, that's crazy for a rookie with not top talent to do that. And the touchdown to interception ratio would be 30-4. I mean, if that's not MVP, what is?
So,
especially when the rest of the NFL, I'll let you go. My bad.
No, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to.
Isn't taken off.
So I had this conversation with Texans fans. Like I said, I do a lot of AFC South stuff, so I'm in a lot of different group chats. I was actually going back and forth with a Jaguars fan about it, and some Texans fans joined in about the MVP. If the Texans don't make the playoffs, I don't think he has a chance, even if he keeps playing at the level he's playing. He should probably get it even if they don't make it, because there isn't really a quarterback playing with that kind of touchdown to interception ratio. There's people with his touchdown numbers, but they're throwing.
But how valuable are you really if it's not equating to wins and loss or to wins? Excuse me.
So that's what my point was. If you don't make
valuable, you don't play defense.
But you can't be most valuable in the league if your team is a losing team and doesn't.
The last time that a player on a team that did not make the playoffs won the MVP was 1973 with O.J. Simpson, when he had the first 2,000-yard season of anybody in NFL history.
Right.
So
yeah, and I think you'd have to do something spectacular,
you would have to break records.
Yeah,
and not rookie records,
above and beyond. Okay, I hear you. But as a rookie doing what he's doing with nobody else running away with it, I understand.
But the MVP is not a race that you factor in how long you've been in the league.
He can very well sneak in and get the wild card spot. He could even take the division. If the Jaguars don't beat the Titans,
I totally agree with you. If they don't make the playoffs,
if they do beat the Titans, but I don't think the division in 2 weeks. So, if they make the playoffs, he's in that consideration. If they don't make it, in my opinion, there's just no way you can give it to a guy that doesn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, but again, we can sit here and say we don't know. I mean, we don't know what the next 8 weeks are going to bring in the NFL season, So we can sit here and talk about a couple of players that are in MVP, categories that might not end the season with winning records at the end, but we still put them there now. I mean, Joe Burrow was just in talks 2 weeks ago, and look at them now. They're at the same record as the Houston Texans. So I understand you, but I don't want to hear that, because we've given Joe Burrow, we've given other people that luxury. And I'm just saying, as a rookie, for this guy to be doing what he's doing, I feel like you also got to play that.
I just want CJ Stroud.
I agree with you. I agree with your point. I don't need you to.
You want to bring up CJ Stroud, talking about Trevor Lawrence. All right, dude. Listen here. This is bad to say after this past week, because Trevor played like absolute shit. But there is not an inverse relationship that because CJ Stroud is playing the way he's playing, that Trevor all of a sudden is bad, because a lot of people seem to think that that's what's happening. And up until this 49ers game, he has not been bad. The Texans game that they had earlier in the year was bad, but that was a lot of special teams nonsense. There was a special teams touchdown, special teams blocked field goal that set up a touchdown. And
doesn't Baker Mayfield have better stats than Trevor Lawrence this year?
That's why stats don't tell the full story. Box score scouts are the laziest people in the football community, and they are everything.
Numbers and stats.
Don't look at the stats,
bro.
Don't look at the numbers.
Ammo tells you to not look at something when it doesn't favor his position, but when it does, it tells you, bro,
let Trevor Lawrence be leading the league in stats,
bro,
right?
No.
Yeah,
you
let
need
him lead anything in stats.
Stats matter, because that's how CJ Stroud is important. Stats matter, but stats don't tell the whole story.
Yeah, stats
If
and the
there
way
is
he's
no
bringing his
contact
team
behind-
back, having the ball in his hand and winning 2 games at the end of both games.
Okay, let me ask you
Thanks to
this.
him.
I know Trevor hasn't won me any fantasy games.
If he
I'll
wasn't
tell you that
there,
much.
they don't win those
Jalen
2
Hurts-
games, period.
I mean,
If
put up
Jalen
numbers.
Hurts comes into a game and he throws 3 passes that get batted off Devontae Smith's hands or AJ Brown's hands, and there's 3 interceptions because your receivers tipped the
It
ball.
happened. Yeah,
It
happened already
happened.
this year.
But that's not on Jalen, right?
It is at the for
Interceptions
everyone
is
else's
a
eye.
quarterback
On the
unfortunately,
stat sheet, it is.
On the stat
I
sheet,
don't-
it is. But when you
Right.
watch the film, you're not going to go and say, wow, that's really Jalen's fault. You're going to go and
No,
say,
but
my
the
receiver's
stats are
got to
gonna
fucking.
always say it.
Exactly. And that's why film
Right.
has to back up the stats. You could have 3 interceptions where none of them are your fucking fault, and you threw 2 more touchdowns. So in a real world where your receivers are actually catching, it's 2 touchdowns to no interceptions, but the stats
You
aren't
can
going
say
to
that
show
about
that. So that's
touchdowns too. You can say
exactly.
that about
That's why film
defensive
is
players
important. Like
falling, and all of a
there's-
sudden you got an open touchdown.
have
It's like, oh, he threw an 80-yard
We're
touchdown.
talking about CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud throws that incredible game against the Buccaneers, but you're not factoring in the fact that that Buccaneers secondary is the worst in the league. They're absolutely cooked. That
Yeah,
fact,
Bro, but they're still
so
a professional football secondary,
that's
bro,
an
and that's still a
incredible
Yeah,
rookie
but bro,
performance.
if
quarterback.
we
I'm not
start
taking that away.
start doing that,
And that
every
front seven
year,
isn't
do you
nothing to laugh
understand
at.
how everything is going to be skewed? I mean, you can literally, and I don't care if
I'm
you guys
just-
want to, you
what
can
I'm
bring this
saying-
back to. You can bring this back to the beginning of sports, bro. You can go to every champion. You can go to the best of the best. You can go to Michael Jordan. You want to break down
You're
every
not
game during the
arguing against my
season.
point, though.
What do you mean?
You're agreeing. You're saying that the context matters, and that's why I'm saying that there are people out there that don't watch any games ever. They don't watch anything. They don't ever provide context for themselves.
I hear you,
and I'm
but we
saying
have to go
those
off of
peop-
stats at a point because we're not going to go
Yes,
back
and
and watch every single game. It's
I just
impossible. You
told
can't watch every
stats
play.
are important, but I think that if you're only going to, that's what I'm saying. If you only look at stats, you're never going to understand what's actually happening.
No, I
if you
totally
only-
understand that.
Like you have to at some point watch what you're talking about because there's certain things that aren't going to show up in stat sheets. Like you look strictly at sack numbers, you're not going to see a guy getting pressure on a quarterback. You're not going to see a guy blowing up a double team and taking on a double team because it's not going to show up in a stat sheet. There's things that happen in all NFL games that tell a different story that's never going to show up in a stat sheet.
Pressure
Yeah.
was a bad example because there's a stat for quarterback pressures, but I do get your point that there are things that don't necessarily.
But
that you
pressures
need film.
pressures
Like I always say,
don't-
context matters. Right?
Pressures
Like,
don't
your
get
film
talked
is your
about when you're
context.
talking about someone going into
Right.
the Hall of Fame. Sacks is what
I
they're going to talk
understand,
about.
dude. You
Forced
can say that
fumbles.
about a lot of
They're
things.
not gonna,
I
so
understand.
pressures
We all
matters
understand.
in the context, but
Yes.
it's not in that conversation.
We all understand. Somebody can say that they got a sack let up against them, but failed to realize that the quarterback held the ball for 6 seconds. And he held,
Right.
the guy held them for a perfect
Mhm.
5,
Right.
but he got away at the 6th second. Like, trust me, we understand. Like, we all know that there's a little bit of skewed stats there, but
Yeah,
Right, but
so-
at the end of the day, like not every team is lighting up the Buck secondary for damn near 500 yards every week.
right.
No, I know,
So
and that's
what
why I said I
CJ
didn't want to.
Stroud
I didn't
did
want
is
to take.
impressive.
I didn't want to take
Right.
anything away from that because that is impressive. But like,
That's
there
why I'm
is-
not impressed with
there
Sam
is-
Howell or Dak Prescott doing that against the Eagles because I'm
Well-
used to people doing it against the Eagles all year this year. So when another
Yeah.
person goes and throws for 300 plus, it's just like another
it's
day in the park. But
yeah,
but
exactly.
the media is going to go put it out to be like, oh my God, this guy,
Because
Dak
it's the
Prescott, had his
Eagles.
best career of the game of his life because he threw for 370. It's like, dude, everybody
didn't
throws
win.
for 300 against us, right? And you didn't win, and that's what
That's-
matters. We all talk about
like-
wins and losses, and I understand that the whole thing about CJ
And
and,
that's why I was,
MVP,
like,
he needs
talking
to
about
win,
that.
but right,
And
no,
that's
I
why
totally
was talking
agree
about
with
it
you.
because like that's where people are talking about Trevor being a bust. That's because they're looking at his stats and they're not because dude, I can tell you right now, as a Jaguars fan, if I was not a Jaguars fan, I would never fucking watch a Jaguars game, dude. Nobody goes out of their way to watch the Jaguars. It is just not something that people do. It's not something that's easy for people to do, so they're not going to do it. And it's just not something. So they go and they look and they see that these non-impressive numbers, but they're not looking at the fact that the Jaguars defense was leading the league in takeaways and giving them short fields. So how are you going to put up 300 passing yards when you only have 40 yards to go to score? How are you going to put up these gaudy numbers when Travis Etienne's ripping off 2 touchdowns a game for 3-4 games in a row? How are you going to be putting up these crazy passing numbers when everything else about the team is working efficiently? You're up 2 scores early in the game, so you're just coasting through the rest of the game trying to protect a lead and not put your
all I'm saying is
why are
I'm
you
looking
doing
forward.
that's a recipe to not be winning a lot of football games, right?
I
Look at
hate
Dallas
it.
Cowboys. They
I
beat the brakes off the
hate that.
Giants, and they were still passing into the fourth
It's the
quarter.
reason the Jaguars didn't face the Eagles in the Super Bowl that one year in 2017. They got up on the Patriots
Let
and they
off the
started
gas.
playing little baby shit soft zone, and they
Yeah.
let up off the gas, and they said, hey, let's let the fucking best quarterback in NFL history fucking dink and dunk us way back into the game and fucking beat us. And that's exactly what we did. Like, you have to keep your foot on the gas in the NFL if you want to be good. So I really don't like the Jaguars do that. But they've been doing it, and they were on a 5-game win streak. They were 6-2 heading into the bye, tied for the AFC 1 seed. And then, you know, they come out of the bye, they face the 49ers, who people say are a Super Bowl contender. And that was an absolute horrible game. Absolute horrible game. But that doesn't take away from everything they did 5 weeks prior, and the fact that they are doing really well and not needing to put up these numbers because everything else around about the team is taking care of business. You know, last year in that
team is like a well-oiled machine, and they are flawed.
But the rest of the team outside of Trevor is playing at a higher level than anybody anticipated. People thought that Trevor was going to be kind of the engine that drove the train here, but it's not. It's the defense. It's ETN. They are driving the train right now, and we changed play calling.
I mean, they've had a few games that they could have went either way, though, too. Because I think when we were talking about the
how many
differential,
300-yard games does Trevor Lawrence have on
plus
the
+6? You have, I think, +6 on the point differential and 300 point.
I don't know that he does. He has I know he had 290 or something in one, but like that's
he hasn't
not
scored more than 2 touchdowns in a game.
He's had what I'm saying.
I mean, in the NFL, the modern day NFL, if you're a quarterback and you want to declare yourself him, like,
you're in a pass.
You got to be over 300 yards every.
I get that. Like, if you want to be in that upper echelon, but that's not what I'm talking about. You can't say
highest is 292.
You can't
315
say
for the Buffalo.
Oh, sorry, 315. Yep, 315. Yep.
I'm with you.
Okay, the 49ers game was absolutely terrible. Like, he played bad.
185.
But the rest of the games,
and Kirk had
he's not playing bad. Just because he's not putting up top 5 numbers does not mean he's a bad quarterback, and that's what I'm hearing. People, he's not a bust.
Well, the problem
he's in the discussion.
Listen, of course, you have a bunch of pages that you follow with AFC South hate.
No, it's not even like that. Like, you got to
it's not AFC South stuff.
Hold on.
Okay.
With Trevor Lawrence, though, you got to understand, this dude has been like the prince who was promised since he came onto the scene.
Okay,
so now it's performance relative to expectation, and if his performance is not meeting the expectation that he came in with, people are going to be like, "Oh, he's not as good as we thought he was." Unlike somebody like Brock Purdy, who came in and played way better than anybody expected, and we're like, "Oh, this is the second coming of Joe
Montana."
He
was the last pick of the draft,
right?
Because
244 apart. You know what I mean?
You have to understand that a part of that comes with Trevor Lawrence. Like, yeah, you gotta. That's definitely plays into it.
But let's also remember that Trevor Lawrence also has not been in the NFL for 7 years. He's halfway through his 3rd season, and his first season was a fucking joke with Urban Meyer. Like, it is way too quick for these people to try to say this stuff, because it's not that. He went on an absolute heater on a 9-game stretch to end the season last year, where he was 1st or 2nd in most of the major statistical categories over that 9-game stretch where they led into the playoffs. He's shown he can do that over a long stretch of time. That wasn't the full season, but he had a good year last year. He's playing well this year. He's not putting up crazy numbers, but he's winning games. He's running 7-8-minute drives. They're winning the time of possession battle, so he doesn't need to do that. So he's not playing like a top 5, top 10 quarterback, but he's playing winning football, and he's getting what he needs to get done outside of this 49ers game, where
you haven't beat the best teams either. I mean, you beat Atlanta, you beat Indianapolis twice. You know, I give you Buffalo, but Buffalo's kind of shaky this year.
That was
you beat New Orleans and Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
yeah, I
Where was
understand
the
he's getting
who was the
wins,
foreign game?
but
That sounds
I
like a
wanna
lot of
also
winning
go,
records to me.
okay, but you're the first person
Yeah,
to
well,
go off
this
of
is
who
like
you
what I
beat.
said in the
So I'm gonna
pre-production
say
meeting,
it
though.
that
Like,
you don't have the record of who you beaten, because then you lose to San Francisco, grade A team, you lose to Kansas City, grade A team, and you lost to Houston, who before, when you guys played them at week 3, we didn't think they were going to be anything close to what they are right now. So it's like, I mean, I understand he's getting wins, but we look at this all across the
We
league.
can't
You
we
talk
can't
no,
beat
no,
Houston
I don't
and
want to hear. No, no,
Jacksonville.
I was gonna say. I
They
thought you were about to say something else.
no.
I was like, I don't want to hear you say that you
They
can't look
have
at
whooped
stats
our
and certain
ass in
things, and then
Jacksonville every single year
not
for
look at the schedule either. It's like, bro, yeah, you got to beat who you play, but you also can look back at the team record at the end of the year and be like, well, yeah, we didn't play great teams. You know what I mean? We didn't. Yeah, we beat on the teams that we should have beat, but at the same time, he's not. He's not beating the teams that he should, and he's not playing well in those games either. Losing 37-17
He's got
to
9
Houston,
and 6, I think, right?
17 to
Touchdown,
9,
interception.
17 to 9. Like, your defense did everything you needed it to do.
There's
Right.
You held Kansas City to
there's
17
one game
points.
that they lost to a team that they should have beat. They lost to 2 teams that they were supposed to lose.
So you're not a great team, because the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco
Purdy is
49ers,
15 and
they're
5.
supposed to be right where you're supposed to be able to compete with those teams the way Jags were talked about. And if you just want wins at the end of the year, great. Trevor Lawrence going to end his career with
No,
179
I want the
wins
division to go to
and
the
no
playoffs.
Super Bowls.
I mean, remember, like the like again,
He'll
going
be
back to
another
the
Dak
expectation,
Prescott.
right? What we've seen before, right, is we saw, Patrick Mahomes in his second year, I think he won MVP. Lamar Jackson in his second year won MVP. Josh Allen gets a Stephon Diggs and takes a huge leap forward. Jalen Hurts gets AJ Brown, takes a big leap forward, right? So Trevor Lawrence, second year, didn't really take that leap. Obviously, that was like his first year with the whole Urban Meyer thing.
Trevor did absolutely take a leap.
Jalen Hurts' first year was a
but
disaster
hold on.
too.
Now then, you have now Trevor Lawrence gets Calvin Ridley, a number 1 that's supposed to transcend his game and make that another leap. He's not taking those steps into that MVP type conversation. And I think people are just being impatient. I don't think it's fair. I think it's kind of this new way we look at the league is like we're too rushed. We need to see everything blossom right now. And I do think that he's going to end up being a very good quarterback, but it's taking him a little bit longer, I think, than what people are used to.
You know why the NFL is like that? Because very rarely does a quarterback suck for 3 years, and the 4th year or the 5th year that they turn it up. It's very rare.
But you're not talking about
but he doesn't suck, so that you can't use that.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he sucks. I'm just saying a player that isn't playing well or
like Justin Fields is probably not going to get much more with the Bears if he doesn't come back this year and figure it out. Like he's at that point because like he put up great rushing numbers, but he can't win game. He has not been winning games. He's not done what they need.
And then the league is spoiled with CJ Strouds and other players that come in year 1. They light it up. We've had it in the last how many years have we had? And CJ will probably be the next person to do it if he stays on this track. Baker Mayfield broke the rookie passing touchdown.
Justin Herbert.
Trevor Lawrence. Justin Herbert did it. 2 years after that or whatever, and now he might be able to do it. And like that record stood for how long? And now we're about to see it 3 times in the last 6 years or something like that. You know what I mean? So that's the difference, is that the NFL is now becoming that you come in, you perform, and if you're not performing by year 3, we'll see how year 4 goes. But your year 4, like, we're about to have to pay you now. So this is where it is, Let this year go, okay? But next year, this conversation is totally different. You know what I mean? If you can't beat those big teams, I don't think you deserve the contract. He'll get it, but I don't think you deserve it. It's just like Justin Herbert. He got his money, but he's the same. He's in the same boat. He'll put up a bunch of numbers. A little different because he's actually performing well. But he'll put up a bunch of numbers, but won't beat those big teams. He's not going to perform when you actually need him to.
What were you going to say, Kenny?
I was saying, I think that expectation is going to stay up. Thank you, by the way. I think the expectation is going to stay up, maybe even increase, especially with college athlete getting these payment deals. They're staying longer. They're progressing longer in their craft and things before they are graduating to that next level of the NFL. I think you're right. You hit it on the head. I think they're going to be expecting it even more so in the future because. Then why did you come out? Why did you?
The bar has been raised, guys.
Right,
like, that's just what it is, man. Like
too many players
call it
come
unfair,
in and perform right away.
Say it's rushed or what have you, but like enough players have come in and done it within a certain amount of time for it to be now. This is the standard. This is what I want. And if you can't come in here and do that, sorry, but try somewhere else. That's
and
it.
The amount of players that haven't been great in that 3-year stretch. Don't turn it up 4, 5, 6 because they're not in the league anymore. You know what I mean? Obviously, he'll be in the league. That's totally different. But, let's see. I mean, not many people after the 3rd year of doing something in the league, like the 4th year, does it click? Like, Trevor's like, this is what I wasn't seeing. That's what I'm saying. Like, I wonder if this is just the path that you're going to end up seeing him take. Is that this is going to be the quarterback he is. He'll make some throws. He'll be good. You know what I mean? But he needs excellence around him to also be excellent.
That's what he has.
He'll be great with great, and he'll be excellent with excellent.
Does he, though? Because Calvin Ridley's yards of separation is like the same as if a toddler was out there getting covered by Hall of Fame DBs.
That man in practice was running routes, getting separation
and now he's not.
You're right.
It's everybody else's fault except Trevor's.
No. Let me tell you something.
Wait a minute.
No. Trevor is not free of blame, and that's not what I'm saying. You guys are trying to twist the narrative that I'm not making.
We're just going off his argument.
No, the argument that I made
smacked the ball 20 yards forward.
The argument that I made was that he's not playing like a Hall of Fame MVP top 10 player, but to say he's bad is stupid. That's what I said, but you guys ran with it that I was saying something different. That's not what I was saying. I'm also saying that it's way too early to give up on him. Again, not anything wild. I'm not saying anything wild here. There is context behind the stats that Trevor has, because if you just look at his stats, you'd say this dude doesn't belong in the NFL for what he's got.
I don't think any of us said was wild either.
No,
I think everything had a valid point.
We all watch these games. I watched the Jags play enough. Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback. Actually, Trevor Lawrence is a really good quarterback. He's going to eventually be in those MVP conversations. I just think it's a slower development process with him than what we've seen.
I don't think there's development right now because I'm looking at this stuff like I'm going back. Press Taylor is pissing me
He's terrible.
off. I did not want him hired. Like, I knew the whole story about what happened in Philly. I never wanted this guy. I said it before they hired him. I said, hey, we're hiring Dougie P. Please don't bring Press. He brought him on. He hired him. I was pissed off. I've been pissed off about it since. But before, Dougie P was the play caller, so he kept Press, in the wing where Press didn't have the same influence. But now Press is calling the plays, and everything is horizontal. There's nothing attacking downfield. That makes it so fucking easy for defenses to come up and stop anything you're trying to do because you're one-dimensional. It's all running, and it's all quick screens, quick little outs. It's all to the flats. There's no downfield. There's no 10, 15, 20-yard passing. It's stupid. You have a quarterback that's 6'6" that can make a throw anywhere across the field, and you're just like, yeah, but what if we throw 15 screens a game? How are you going to get like? There's just
Mac Jones is like, sign me up for that.
The interior offensive line is just getting pushed back every single play and just collapsing right in front of Trevor every time. So they have to run quicker plays because otherwise he'll just get sacked a million times. So there's a lot going on that's creating things. Trevor needs to play better as well. Sometimes he's got to just get the ball out because he holds it too long. He's definitely guilty of that. The fumbling is a huge problem for him.
He's almost been sacked. They sacked 3 times less than he was the entire season last year. So he's definitely getting beat up a lot more. He's already he's 2 less than he had interception-wise all of last year. But he is getting his averages a little higher, like by passing.
Again,
it's like
Tank Bigsby batted another ball to a fucking DB for another interception. This dude is responsible for like 2 or 3 of Trevor's interceptions. He's responsible for Tank against the 49ers.
Okay.
He was responsible for another one.
I hear Calvin Ridley. I hear a lot like Dre.
No, Calvin Ridley can't get separation recently. I don't know, and I haven't gone into the film and looked at him specifically to know if it's him not getting separation or if the scheme is not getting him open. I got to do more dive into that because like he's a great separator. So
right,
like I've seen some numbers and he is lower than tight ends on our team. So it's definitely problematic at this point.
I know y'all jumped on my neck when I said it earlier in the year, but looking at the schedule, you better hope Houston does not take this division, bro, because I ain't gonna let you live it down.
Bro, I won't be here if the.
I am not letting you live it down.
Won't let him live it down.
They get.
Bro, I won't be here. I won't be here.
You won't be on the show.
They get Indianapolis. They get Tennessee twice. They get New York Jets. They get Denver. They get you guys. They get Arizona and Cleveland. That's how they end their. That's their season at the end.
Fine.
They got 4 or 5 wins in their minimum. I think the way he's playing. I think.
Yeah,
I think
that's
they can
crazy
win
how quickly we changed the perception of a team. You heard 4 or 5 wins in their minimum.
Indianapolis, Tennessee twice. You don't think that's 3 wins there?
No, that's the division game, bro. You're just gonna give them 2 wins against a division opponent, bro. That's a little crazy.
Giving them 2 games against Tennessee. Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, I'm telling you, that's
I was thinking
if they lose,
that's
fine. I'm gonna stand on it. I think that they can beat Tennessee twice. That's fine by me. You guys don't have
we've seen enough about the NFL to know that things like teams get hot, teams get cold. The Texans are a young team and they're streaking right now, but like they're gonna come down to earth pretty quick. And it's nothing to take away from the Texans. It's a part of the process, right? Like that team is going to be good if they stick together, but like winning the division, that's if they do that, bro.
I'm just saying, don't let it happen.
In 2 weeks, we'll kind of set the path for the end of the season for the division. Jaguars go play Tennessee this week, then they'll play Houston. So,
and to speak on your point about Calvin Ridley,
like if we both win our games, that game will determine. Like if they beat us, we'll be tied.
They'll be in the top,
but they'll have the head-to-head because of the tiebreaker. So they would be in first.
And if
for
they
the
could beat
division.
the Jags twice, I think that they could beat Tennessee twice. But
they play us better than they play Tennessee.
Okay.
Styles make fights.
Right.
But anyway, that's enough of the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. There was an awful game this week. There's not really much to say. Top to bottom. The only point that I would
you don't
bring
want to
up,
elaborate on that game? No, you don't want to go into detail
we talked about this before.
We talked about Trevor pretty much the whole time. We didn't really talk about the game.
It's over.
The only point that I will leave it on is there was a video that came out, and I think it was Fred Warner that said something where he said they don't know what they're doing, and somebody on the Jaguars were like, "Yeah, you're right. We don't know what we're doing," and that perfectly.
So it's WP's fault now.
That perfectly explains
Khan's fault. That's the owner.
What happened in that game.
100%.
They came out of the bye week and they didn't look prepared. It was absolutely disgusting. All 3 phases, everything just sloppy, terrible. They look like a fucking high school team.
That's on the coach. You come out the bye week not prepared. 100%. That's on the coach.
The fact that Doug Peterson hasn't put Press Taylor in the fucking corner, and the fact that he came out of a bye week so unprepared is a really big indictment on fucking Dougie P. Like he's got to reprove himself again after that. That's a rough stretch right there. So we're gonna move on to the other fucking jungle cats in here. Kenny, why don't you tell us? Okay, yeah, no, we can move on now. We'll just skip that segment.
No, man, that was the whole. I mean, what do you say? What's to say? It was another horrible outing. We look completely out of sync offensively. Defensively, we're kind of left to pick up those pieces. It's I was listening to the a few pages and things like that speaking about us, and it's like I get Bryce is still very much young into the game, and I'm not giving up on him. I think he still has very much a lot of talent. I know we spent a lot of time talking about CJ, and CJ is an amazing talent. I think we would have been in similar situations, unfortunately, no matter who we picked. I think we oversold our coaching staff and roster to a degree where I think we kind of set ourselves up for what's going on right now. We definitely sold it to be better than what we've become, but you can't give type of money, money to output for, Chark. I think he has like maybe 3 touchdowns, I think, on the year. Nobody can get separation. We can't find our way, out of a paper bag, unfortunately. I think seeing
Stop trying to
the
take
way
Ammo's excuse.
It's bad. It's bad. I'll try not to blame Bryce as much just because he's young. It's his first year, but it's, nothing looks put together. Nothing looks put together. It looks like we're still practicing out there somewhat. So I'll keep it short because it's a rough look. I mean, even Thomas Brown calling the plays now. I think I'd go on record to say I think you've made the change. You made the switch. This is Thomas's offense for the rest of the season. I think it's at this point that you were going to do that to begin with. I think that was just the plan. I think at the bye week, you're doing as horrible as we were doing. You weren't losing anything. It's Brown's offense. He's always been very, very high on Bryce. I think he's going to get the best out of him, whatever that may be. But yeah, it's a little bleak out there. I think if we walk off this year without bringing back Burns, it'll be a dark couple of years going into it. But losing to the Bears is a little rough. With our pick.
Well, I was gonna say with the way that the draft pick kind of works out with you giving your draft pick to Chicago, it was a lose-lose for you and a win-win for Chicago, no matter how you really looked at that game. So,
and it was the most funny thing seeing the reports that Carolina was shopping for number 1 receiver for the trade deadline. I'm like, didn't y'all just have one of those?
Seriously, they talked about Adams. I heard about T. Higgins.
Yeah, but I'm like, why? Y'all had DJ Moore, but whatever. And then,
and especially if you're not going to pay Burns, then what the fuck? Then send him on his way. Mm-hmm. If that was going to be the piece that have DJ to bring in a young quarterback, like he's put up 1,000-yard seasons with shit quarterbacks throughout the years. Give him a number 1 pick. Finally, DJ who's been owed that shit the whole time he's been with us. Mm-hmm. And that's the one guy we get rid of. I love Burns. He was right up here. Burns is one of my all-time favorite Panthers. But equally, if you're not going to pay the man, you have to move on. If he's not going to
some value,
you have to find something out of it. And you've
been offered multiple first-round picks at multiple different times, and you have said no. That happened. The Rams offered 2 first-round picks. They couldn't offer one in the current draft, but they offered him in the 2 following drafts, and they turned that down for him. Right. And then you have teams like the Jaguars and a couple others that came in and offered first-round picks. The Jaguars offered a first-round pick for Brian Burns, I'm pretty sure.
And they were in that conversation. And where in recent years, as a Panther fan, you've seen the team do Steve Smith wrong. You've seen them do Cam Newton wrong. You've seen him now do McCaffrey kind of wrong in the sense, but
wasn't there an issue with Greg Olsen too?
Yeah, some franchises are just shit, dude, when it comes to personnel and what they do with them, bro.
So it's like whether them standing on it going, oh, I want to keep Burns. This is my guy. Then pay him. If you're going to say this, stand on your word and pay him. That's kind of what my
make
point
him
is.
your franchise guy.
If that's your guy, that's your guy. You can't.
But Kenny, these are off-season conversations. We're in the season right now.
It's the mid-season. This is horrible.
Kenny's been wanting.
He's gone. He's gone.
He's been wanting this extension done for like 2 years now.
For 2 years,
he's gone. Y'all had your chance.
It's been going on.
Too late now.
Yeah,
that's
it's too late now. But I know,
and then I do have a question, man. Like just in general with the Panthers, Like, weren't they supposed to be like the best team for a quarterback to go to with Frank Reich and Thomas Brown over there? Like, what happened to that?
They completely oversold the coaching staff. It's like you only hear about these two, but honestly, the defense.
I think Frank Reich and Dougie P need a reunion.
Is not working for us. He's got to find somewhere else as a coordinator. I think the league is surpassed Reich. I think at this point. But
yeah,
I was high on the team.
As head coach, I think he's a very smart offensive coordinator. But I think when the whole plate is on him, when the whole dinner menu is on him, it's hard for him to plate it. You know what I mean? Like it really is. Like
Todd Bowles, great defensive coordinator, bad head coach.
Right. Let Frank Reich go back to Doug Peterson. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, stop wishing that evil on me, man. I don't want.
Why, bro? What do you mean that evil, bro? That was a Super Bowl winning fucking tandem.
Dude.
All right, fuck it. This is why you're.
He would be good with Trevor.
This is why you live in mediocrity, because you don't want greatness on your team. You want fucking Frank Reich in a bag of potato chips instead of. I mean, you want Dougie P in a bag of potato chips instead of Dougie P and Frank Reich, who won a Super Bowl.
I'll take Frank Reich over Press Taylor, but
exactly, and I think that those two together would be perfect again.
I'd also take a wet bag of dog shit over fucking Press Taylor, but that's a different story.
Bryce Young has a better touchdown interception ratio than Trevor, so obviously Frank.
Okay, but nobody looks at the film and says that Bryce Young is playing better than Trevor. So,
I know.
It's also hard to throw interceptions when you don't throw more than 5 yards down the field, bro.
Exactly.
That'll help.
And also,
I mean,
hard to throw interceptions.
Trevor threw two on all 3 feet tall.
Yeah, and on your back.
Yeah, right.
All right.
He's been sacked 29 times this year.
That's not good.
Trevor's been hit 24, I think, is what they said.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think Bryce would make it this long. I'm shocked. That little guy just keeps getting
Iron Man right now. I mean, he's got some fight.
What do you mean? What do you mean, little guy?
What do you mean, little?
Yeah, you're the same height as him.
Relative to the other people that are trying to take his head off.
Right. Oh man. Yeah.
What do you mean, little guy?
I just explained it.
Just making sure.
I love all shapes and sizes.
Kenny, any final remarks on the best team in the league, the Panthers?
Best of luck to Chicago. Congrats on the better pick this week. What else do we got? We have the Cowboys this week. I think this game was going to be closer than this week will be. How's that for optimism? Is that some positive? Is that some positive?
Are you going to get 21 skunked?
I'm thinking it'll be at least 28-6 is what I'll
28. Okay. You saw what they did to the Giants, right?
I did,
bro. I really hope that you can, you guys can actually make this a game. You're not going to win, but I hope you make it a game at least.
The Cowboys pretty well.
Yeah,
I doubt it as well, but we do. We play the Cowboys pretty.
I don't want to hear about we play the Cowboys really well when you play them like once every 4 years. Okay.
Last one on our Thanksgiving game.
Fuck you talking about 4
years? 8 years ago, bro. 8 years ago, dude.
I had hair. Yeah, I had hair.
My shit was down to here, bro.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
On that note,
we usually play them pretty well.
We're not going to talk about the worst team in the league anymore. They don't even get the number 1 pick out of being the worst team in the league. So we're gonna move on.
Draft hype
to maybe a fringe top 10 team in the league. Gonna move on here to the Eagles.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, fringe top 10.
Wait a minute, I caught that.
Disrespectful.
And he goes off screen.
Yeah.
Do it over, man. Nope.
Bring this
8-1 coming off.
We need you to edit that.
We deserve a better intro than that.
All right, so we're gonna talk about the barely making the playoffs Philadelphia Eagles.
I ain't gonna say it no more.
All right.
He said barely make the playoffs.
Y'all had a bye week this week, so not much to talk about. But I believe you guys said in the pre-show that y'all got your gauntlet coming up, your rough stretch of games. So
that we do.
Let's hear what you got coming up.
Yeah, so Eagles, the next 4 games we have Chiefs, Bills, Niners, Cowboys.
Seahawks, Cowboys.
Bro, what are you talking about?
Right? Don't we have the Seahawks before the Cowboys, don't we?
No, you interrupted me to say something wrong, bro.
Oh, my bad. I thought we had the Seahawks before the Cowboys. We have it after them. I know we have them in the gauntlet. I
wasn't really considering. I mean, all right. So, like, if you look at the Niners, the Cowboys, you know what? Maybe the Bills we're not looking at the same, but, you know, before they were considered, you know, a tough team. And I guess they still are. And the Chiefs, I just don't look at the Seahawks in that same vein as those other 4. But yeah, I mean that's not a pushover either. So yeah, we could throw them in there. So
I mean that's been the talk of the gauntlet. I was gonna say I thought that's been the talk of the gauntlet the whole time. It was those 5 games, not the 4. But my bad.
Then
you look at the Seahawks like you do the other 4 teams.
I mean the Seahawks been playing good. They always go back to Kenny's fucking thing, right? They always play us tough.
So you know what? That's a good point. We don't want to overlook them. But, I mean, realistically, there's a lot of talk about this, right? And the reason I say the next 4 games is because there's a lot of talk with, you know, our next 3 games and the Cowboys' next 3 games. And they have a way more favorable schedule. And some people can see a couple losses. Will our game against the Cowboys on, when do we play them? On December 10th? Is that going to be for the division? Do you think we'll be tied, you know, going into that week? So, you know, obviously, I'm going to like our chances each week. All of these teams have showed to be flawed. But I think the important thing is the Eagles really start, especially after the bye week, we come out with a sense of urgency and really start to look like we, you know who we want to be on a week in and week out basis. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling about the next few games for us?
Yeah, Chiefs are going to be tough. That game I'm on the fence about. Bills, I actually feel pretty confident about. The Niners game, I actually think that they're going to be playing with so much emotion as in the Niners, not the Eagles. I think the Eagles know that we're going to go in there and try to handle business, and I think that game can get away from us. I think the Niners are actually going to play with a lot of emotion. I think we're going to end up winning that game. I think we beat the Cowboys, and I have a funny feeling about the Seahawks, and I think we drop that game. So out of the 5 games, I think we still come out 3-2, which still puts us at a favorable 11-3. So the Cowboys already having 3 losses, I think we go into that game exactly the same, and we're going to be fighting for the. Why are you laughing, Emma?
He's going to edit this entire thing.
Yeah.
No, this guy's laughing. I'm like, wait, what the hell did I say something funny? I was like, did I mess something up? I'm getting distracted because he's laughing in the background over here. But I think we dropped the game to the Seahawks. But I think after that we come out of there 3-2, and then we have the Giants, Cardinals, and Eagles to end. You know what I mean? So I think at that point,
Giants, Cardinals, and Giants.
Cardinals, Giants. I think that we can win all 3 of those games. But the last Giant game, I hopefully doubt that we need it, but we'll probably need it and we'll beat them.
That Seattle game is going to be interesting because they will face the Rams, 49ers, Cowboys, then 49ers before they get to you, Seattle. So you'll get to see how they play against the Cowboys and 49ers before they even get to you.
Right. So that one, I'm just, we'll see how they end up looking like at that point. But I always have a weird feeling when we play the Seahawks, kind of like you were saying, even though I joked about it. But like we really do. Like we've played the Seahawks a couple of times in the last couple of years, and I know they're different teams, but DK always kills us. It doesn't matter who it was when Russell was there. He killed us. You know, I mean, we always get murdered by them. Like I feel like we always stink against the Seahawks, and we're up there. Not going to be good, but we'll see. Hopefully we pull it off.
He's wearing the beast mode.
Yeah, I mean,
he was waiting for you to notice.
Obviously, if I have to look for a loss on our schedule,
you were wondering who
I would
I'm
say the
rooting for in
Niners. That Niners game is probably what makes me the most nervous, only because again, they've been pretty loud about how they feel about the NFC Championship game and how that would have went had they had a quarterback on their roster. They also suffered 3 losses, and when you look at number 1 in the NFC, if they want any chance to, have the number 1 seed in the playoffs, they would need to beat us. So, and obviously the number 1 seeds these days matter so much more because that's the 1 bye week, right, in each conference. So you got to think that a team like the 49ers is really going to come prepared for this game, thinking about the big picture. So, that's going to be a motivated team. The Seahawks, though, I do agree. And then when Kenny rattled off the schedule, I got a little bit more nervous only because I feel like, again, for their playoffs and seeding and what have you, they're really going to need that game as well.
That's a desperation game, right? That's what scares me about them is that it's a tough game. It's our last 2 weeks. It's our It's our last tough game of the year. We can kind of maybe take it light, if we get past them or then we got 3 cake wins. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like sometimes they can kind of get in their own head and
I like our I was going to say I like our team mentality. I think I don't necessarily think that we look at it that way. But what I will say is whenever we do kind of stumble, we respond really well.
Yeah.
So especially going into this rough stretch of games, like if we do suffer that loss, right? Like I know we're going to respond after it pretty well, but boy, if we can get through it, then and which we can, the way we're playing ball, like it could look real good for us going into December.
Yeah, and I mean, like you were saying with that hole, we bounced back very strong. I mean, Jalen Hurts besides that rookie year when he got thrown into the fire, like if you take year 2, year 3, he hasn't lost back-to-back games.
No, and his stats after a loss, I wish I had them up, but they are pretty impressive, pretty solid.
He
balls out.
Terrible, I know.
Yeah.
It's fucking good.
Yep. We're not talking about Trevor Lawrence anymore, dude.
Yeah, Jalen on because I know we've done the touchdown interception. He's on the 15-8 and being sacked 22 times. So he's the least sacked out of the 3 of us.
Yeah, because
and we have more wins than both of y'all combined. So
yeah. Okay, cool. The Panthers contributed nothing.
Listen, man.
It's one game. It's one game. That's one game.
All right. We are way over schedule here. So, do we have any wrap on this Eagles gauntlet coming up?
I mean, the first game coming out is Kansas City. If I just had to do a quick prediction, I will say 27-24 Eagles.
And Ant.
Yeah, I know. Hold on.
All right.
Okay.
Hang on real quick.
So with that, we're gonna move on to our pick'ems here.
Pick'em.
So to recap,
he's really gone.
The standings are as follows. Me in first place because I'm the greatest that there ever was.
Rigged.
Then you got Ant in second place, 1 game behind me. Kenny in third place, 6 games behind him. And then Dre.
Chipping
4
away,
games,
Kenny.
4
I know. I
games
see.
behind that.
No
But-
way.
but
Wait a minute.
we did run this down and we allowed Dre the opportunity kind of blindly to just pick what he would have done. and he would have
added
gotten
9,
he would have
right?
gotten 9 wins,
Mhm.
which puts him
5 up.
5 up.
So it would have been 93. He would be 1 below on third.
So he'd be in third, 2 games behind first, 1 behind second, several games ahead of old shitbird over here.
I have a lot of upsets this week, so we're good.
So
This is where I get my money back.
Kenny, why don't you tell us which upsets that you picked?
This week I have the Bengals, Steelers. I have I actually have the Giants beating the Commanders. And then the Rams taking the Seahawks. Broncos taking the Vikings. So we got a few mixed in. I do have the Chiefs over the Eagles, only 35-28. And then the Broncos to Vikings 21-17.
All right. I'll just get mine out of the way because the Broncos are my only upset pick of the week. I went green bean across the board and everything else. I have Chiefs beating the Eagles 31-27. And then Broncos beating the Vikings 24-21. Dallas is going to score the most, and Pittsburgh will score the least. So, Ant, why don't you tell us what upset you got, and if you think you're going to take the lead. All right. Ant, fix your audio. Dre, why don't you tell us what your upsets are?
All right. So for my upsets, I got the Bengals over the Ravens because they need to win. I have actually
Can you hear me?
Oh, and I have the Broncos over the Vikings.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I have the Eagles over the Chiefs.
Okay.
Eagles, I have, like I already said, 27-24 over the Chiefs. Vikings, Broncos, I'll call that 20-24. I have the Bills. No, sorry. I have the Cowboys scoring the most points. No, I lied. I have the Dolphins scoring the most points. And I have the Giants scoring the least.
And Ant, why don't you close us out with your upsets? Nope.
I'm just kidding. I wasn't talking.
Oh,
all right.
Nicely done.
Yeah. All right. So I ended up just switching last minute because I don't know. I just said fuck it. I'm actually picking the Bengals over the Ravens. I don't know. I don't trust the Ravens. The Ravens should win. Bengals shouldn't win. Bengals are gonna win. I don't know. That's my pick. Everything else is green across the board. I got the Eagles, the only opposite from obviously being red right now. They're the only ones that I picked besides the Bengals to win against the spread. I have us beating the Chiefs 38-35. I have
that sounds familiar.
Shut up.
Does somebody hold a little bit of resentment?
I was trying to tell you about these pick'ems, bro. Dude switching his picks last second. His score mirroring your score. Come on now.
No. It's
Super Bowl.
It's from the Super Bowl. Yeah, he's
lost,
bitter.
Dude,
He's mad that they lost 38-35. So he said they're gonna beat them.
But...
Yeah, okay. There was a
I
little.
had already blocked that out of memory.
There was a little piece of you that is holding on to
everything. I did not put that because of that. I swear on my life.
It's a little piece. It's all right.
Okay. All right. Well, Vikings and Broncos game. I have Minnesota winning 21-17. Most points, Dallas. Least points, Carolina.
Trash.
Yeah.
Carolina, that is. Sorry.
I know.
So
see us square a little bit.
We went a little bit longer today, but we got going about these refs and future league MVP Trevor Lawrence.
We got our Wednesday pod in.
Let's go.
Since it's Wednesday right now.
True. We did make it into Wednesday. But yeah. That's going to wrap us for this week. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. We are the Bro Stop Yelling Podcast. You can find Kenny on Twitter at Stop Yelling Kenny. You can find Ant on Twitter at ASUSA203. And you can find Dre on Twitter, the kid _24. And you can find me at Ammo Jags or the Stop Yelling Pod. Y'all have a great week.